10 Most powerful creatures in Greek mythology. All cultures throughout the world have their own legendary creatures. These animals were believed to be extraordinary animals or hybrids who possessed special abilities or attributes. While some were believed to be highly intelligent, others were known for being dangerous and powerful. Today, we will talk about the most powerful creatures in Greek mythology. 10. The Sphinx. The Sphinx is a monster that was said to have the body of a lion, the head of a woman, and the wings of an eagle. The Sphinx is perhaps known best for her role in the legend of Oedipus. The story goes that as Oedipus was traveling down the road to Thebes, he is confronted by the mysterious creature. The Sphinx blocks Oedipus's path and confronts him with a riddle. Although the exact riddle is not mentioned in early Greek legend, the popular version of the story tells that the Sphinx poses the following riddle to the young traveler. What is that which in the morning goeth upon 4 feet, upon 2 feet in the afternoon, and in the evening upon 3? Oedipus correctly answers the riddle: man, who crawls on all fours as a child, then on 2 feet as an adult, and finally, with the help of a cane, on 3 feet during the sunset of life. Having been bested at her own game, the Sphinx throws herself from a high cliff. In some versions, the Sphinx devours herself out of anger and frustration. Had Oedipus not answered the riddle correctly, he would have been strangled and devoured by the creature, which had been the fate of so many travelers before him. 9. The Cyclops. The Cyclopses were primordial giants that were said to have been born from Gaia, the earth. They were said to possess great strength and ferocity, with one bulging eye protruding from their forehead. Fearing their power, the Cyclops were thrown into the pits of Tartarus by their father Uranus. The monsters remained imprisoned when the Titan Cronus overthrew Uranus and took his place as ruler of the universe. It was only when the Olympians came to power that the Cyclopses found freedom. The mighty Zeus released the monsters, who in turn would craft thunderbolts for the young Olympian. 8. The Chimera. The Chimera was a ferocious, fire-breathing monstrosity that possessed the body and head of a lion, with the head of a goat protruding from its back and a snake for a tail. The brief description of the Chimera in the text of the Iliad is the earliest surviving record of the creature. The Chimera is traditionally considered to have been a female and was said to have given birth to the Sphinx and the Nemean lion. The monster was feared and believed to have been an omen for storms, shipwrecks, and other natural disasters. 7. The Empusa. Unlike the other creatures on this list, the Empusa is perhaps little known and does not appear in any traditional epic or popular legend. However, her frightening appearance and her ghastly tendency to feast on human blood and flesh more than warrants her place as number 7 on our list. The Empusa is often depicted as a beautiful woman who transforms into a creature with sharp teeth, flaming hair, and in some interpretations, bat wings. The Empusa is probably best known for her appearance in Aristophanes' The Frogs, where she terrifies the god Dionysus as he travels to the underworld. 6. The Hydra. Perhaps the most famous monster Hercules ever battled, and for good reason. Defeating a dragon with 9 heads would be memorable on anybody's list of achievements, but a dragon with 9 heads who grew 2 heads every time was one cut off. Oh, and one of the heads was immortal, but you didn't know which one. That's impressive. Besides all that, its breath and blood were both insanely poisonous. Even stepping in the tracks it left could kill you. That's insane. Hercules defeated the Hydra as only the second of his 12 labors, cauterizing the neck stumps of the heads he cut off before new heads could grow back. The immortal head? He just put a big ass rock on it. 5. The Charybdis and Scylla. The two creatures who lived on opposite sides of a narrow strait have become so synonymous that it is impossible to talk about one without mentioning the other. The Charybdis is never explicitly described, other than saying it is a ferocious sea monster that lives under a rock on one side of a narrow strait. The Charybdis regularly swallows massive amounts of water, which create monstrous whirlpools that are capable of destroying an entire ship. Similarly, the Scylla lives on the opposite side of the narrow strait, and is believed to have been a many-headed sea monster that fed on the flesh of sailors who unwittingly travelled too close to the beast's lair. The Charybdis and Scylla are found within the pages of the Odyssey. Odysseus is forced to navigate the narrow strait during his travels and decides to travel closer to the Scylla so as to avoid the massive whirlpool of the Charybdis. As the ship sails past, 6 of Odysseus's men are swallowed up by the monster and eaten alive. 4. Cerberus. Cerberus is a popular creature in ancient mythology. Hades' loyal guard dog, Cerberus was a massive hound with 3 heads that guarded the entrance to the underworld. It was said that the beast only had an appetite for living flesh, and so would only allow the deceased spirits to pass, while consuming any living mortal who was foolish enough to come near him. While Cerberus was a notable creature of mythology, he's probably best remembered as the 12th and final labor that Hercules performed. Hercules managed to tackle the beast, then using his great strength, throws the animal over his shoulder and drags him to the mortal world. 3. The Minotaur. Compared to some of the monsters on the list, the Minotaur is practically boring. It's a dude with a bull head, not exactly hard to wrap your mind around. But there's a reason the Minotaur has always been one of Greek mythology's most famous monsters, and that's because it was an instant classic. A hidden monster hidden away in a labyrinth, whose sole purpose was to kill the sacrificial children that got dumped in there as a yearly tribute. The fact that the Minotaur was born when his mother, Queen Pasiphae, wanted to have sex with a bull so badly she made a metal cow costume she could hide in that the bull would mount, well, that's just the salacious icing to this monstrously classic cake. 2. Gorgons. Perhaps the most well-known monster of Greek mythology. These 3 sisters, Medusa, Cino and Euryale, of course had hair made of living and extremely poisonous snakes, which seems a bit overkill when just looking directly at their faces would also immediately petrify you. Often, the 2 non-Medusa sisters were also immortal. Less occasionally, all 3 had giant fangs, like boar tusks. Of course, Medusa was defeated by the hero Perseus, but he needed help and equipment from Athena to do so. Otherwise, there would have been just one more heroic-looking statue in the Gorgon's den. 1. Typhon. Typhon was known as the father of all monsters. He was birthed from Gaia, the earth, and Tartarus, the depths of hell. He was said to have been the most ferocious creature ever to roam the earth. The last child of the primordial goddess Gaia, Typhon was as tall as the stars, and his arm span was from east to west. Sources differ as to whether Typhon had 100 dragon head on his neck or 1 giant human head, and dragon heads for fingers, but most agree that his body was covered in dragon wings and had hundreds of serpents for legs. Typhon could throw mountains at people he didn't like, and one person he didn't like was Zeus, the king of the gods. Typhon was so powerful, he defeated Zeus and ripped out most of his muscles. Zeus only recovered because Hermes stole his muscles back later.